bring in Professor Mark Swilling of Stellenbosch University, who speaks to us so much about energy sustainability and also has something to say about this current situation. Prof, thank you so much for joining us. Always great to chat to you. We're going to get on to the situation of where we are with our load shedding in just a moment. But this issue around the exemption from the national financial reports, rather, the yearly financial reports, has created a lot of upset. We're now hearing Eskom, Transnet got this exact same exemption. Do you think it's a fair exemption? Do you think it's fair to say to these institutions, hopefully emerging from state capture, look, you can still get a clean audit and you can exclude that? Or do you think it's inherently trying to hoodwink potential interested parties?
Look, Sally, I think it's been badly handled. The Eskom late this afternoon issued a very long statement which basically said that there is a reconfiguration of financial reporting taking place in the wake of state capture. And it's particularly relevant to Eskom because Eskom doesn't want to live with this permanent stain on its record, the state capture stain that has been thoroughly documented in the state capture report forever. Eskom wants to get out of it, turn over a new leaf, set up a new business model in the wake of the budget speech where the Minister of Finance said your future is in transmission, not generation. And that's how they want to go forward. So that's the generous reading. The suspicions are high, unsurprisingly, because of the low trust levels in government and especially when it comes to Eskom amongst the commentariat and in the public at large, saying, well, we smell a rat here. But as you said, it's happened before, not just with Transnet, with other institutions as well. It's in the present circumstances, it's going to raise suspicion. It's been badly handled. The explanation shouldn't come afterwards.
Yeah. Good point. Yeah. And also, let's not forget what Andre de Ruyter said in that interview with Annika Larsen. He's alleging that there's R1 billion worth of corruption ongoing within Eskom. Of course, he's still going to appear at Parliament and hopefully give us more details. But that suggests as well that state capture is one thing, but corruption potentially, very likely, continues at Eskom.
Well, state capture. It's not just the Guptas and the Watson brothers. It's a particular pattern of behavior that has penetrated across the whole of society, both public and private sectors. So it has continued within Eskom, and that's very, very clear to everybody. But what has made it particularly destructive in Eskom is corruption has combined with sabotage. With agendas to destabilize management, get the data out, discredit the president. So that's been a very, very particular dynamic. That's probably in decline for a moment, but it might come back when these cartels realize that they might not be getting their way. So now what we have is kind of routine everyday corruption where people continue to eat, but it's not the sabotage that is so extremely destructive and unpredictable.
Let's focus on how Eskom's doing in terms of its ability to provide the power that South Africa needs. We had a few good days. I think March 20th was a non-load shedding day. But since then, we're now seeing we're going back into that pattern of stages 3 and 4. You said to us on this program a number of months ago that you expect levels sort of 4, 5 and 6 to be an ongoing reality. Is it panning out pretty much as you expected?
Well, Eskom has just released their projections through to December, in fact, into the beginning of next year. And these projections show very clearly that they expect, that's the diagram, and they have a green, a yellow, an orange, and a red. And on the far right-hand side, the top of the column reads likely risk scenario. And as you can see, the likely risk scenario is all red through to the end of the year. So this is Eskom's projection. of what this looks like, and it's stages 3 and 4 for quite a lot of the time, and if unplanned breakdowns continue, like we've just seen happening now, that could push us into stages 5, 6 again, and hopefully not higher than that. What we need to realize is that load shedding is a way of managing the grid in a way to prevent a full-scale blackout.
Yeah.
So, to some extent, load shedding is good news because it prevents the worst outcome.
Yeah, I suppose you're right. It's also, though, a bit of a litmus test. It's a signal that Eskom has still not managed to get its house in order to prevent load shedding. But you're right. Load shedding is the thing that's going to hopefully stop a full-on blackout. We've seen the Eskom CEO, Andre de Ruyter, depart. We've seen the new electricity minister doing his round of power stations. In terms of disruptions in the way the power utility is going to be run, do you think it makes much of a difference that Andre de Ruyter is out, that we've got an electricity minister? Has there been any fundamental change in how to solve the problem of our constrained power supplies?
Well, I think it's probably too early to tell. One thing that I think we should be grateful for is that the acting CEO that has been appointed is a seasoned Eskomite, the former CFO, a steady hand, deeply familiar with Eskom's financial woes. So I think that was a good decision. The new minister for electricity seems to be somebody whose job it is to broker a political settlement between the different dynamics and factions, to build a unified understanding of the future, in particular a commitment to the Energy Action Plan. The Energy Action Plan, which was adopted by Cabinet, formulated by the National Electricity Crisis Committee, is actually a replica of what de Ruyter was trying to formulate. So it's actually the Eskom plan, which has become the National Energy Action Plan, and the new Minister of Electricity has to build a political commitment to ensure loyalty and commitment to that plan. And he's got a lot of powers at his disposal to make it work. We just must make sure that he does his job.
Talk to me about winter. We know that there's always more demand for power. You have proven remarkably accurate at predicting things, so we're relying on you now to tell us, what do you see in terms of levels of load shedding? And I know it's unstable and hard to predict, but your best guess to take us through to spring in September. What do you think?
Well, I think the really well-informed analysts have not really bought into the recent narrative that we've seen in the media, and also expressed by the new Minister of Electricity, that we're now fixing things, things are going to improve. It's really just about a bit of corruption that we need to get rid of. No, it's quite reassuring noises, but well-informed analysts know that this is not true. The people at the front line in Eskom know that it's not true, that it's very difficult to really predict exactly what's going to happen, because what we can be certain about is we live with high levels of uncertainty. Given that, the last few days is the beginning. We will shift back into fairly high levels of load shedding. It's unavoidable, especially during winter. And at the same time, we also need to recognize that there's a lot of new renewable energy generation in the pipeline. And as soon as all of that starts coming online, maybe even from the end of this year into next year, that is what's really going to make it possible to start alleviating the load shedding that is so destructive of our economy.
Well, thank you so much for chatting to us this evening. It's Professor Mark Swilling, co-director at the Centre for Sustainability Transitions at Stellenbosch University, saying it is going to be a tough winter, possibly for the rest of the year. But as soon as that alternative power comes online, we could see matters improve.